Hello, Dude Mindfulness Collective, reporting to you here from the featureless void. Oh my god, it worked. Just one button later, and it worked. Lovely. Okay. So nice to be here with you. I didn't think it was going to work. Wait, how did it work? Anyway, neither here nor there, folks. Lovely, as always, to be here with you. Today is a very, very special day. If you need a reminder, well, let me be here to give it to you. Today is my favorite day. This is the cheesiest thing I've thought of saying on the stream in the history of the stream. Today is today, which is great. I need a pith way to say that doesn't sound super dumb. And apparently, I haven't spoken out loud yet today, and I've got the Barry White voice going. Very fun. Okay, folks. So, I think if I get closer, I can... All right, excellent, folks. So, we're going to be meditating for about 25 minutes today. My voice is probably going to clear up in a minute and be normal. There it goes. Let's see. All right, so let me know where you're coming from and what you're grateful for. Coming from Brooklyn. What am I grateful for? In reality, I could just say some dumb thing, make it sound like I'm grateful, but what am I really grateful for? Oh, you know what? The healing power of sleep. Boy, let me tell you, I can't believe that. It's so crazy how there's times when I'm having a hard day. I'm like, oh, this is a hard day. I'm just going to take a nap. I'm tired. Take a little nap. And I'm like, it's just like a full reset. It's crazy. Good morning from sunny Brooklyn. Grateful for the purple flowers. What kind of purple flowers are those? It bugs me that we can't share images here. Maybe we should. That's an interesting idea. Is setting it up so that maybe we can share images here somehow. That is probably a possibility. That would be fun. People share images from their phone or something. Even something you could text in the number, you just send it to a text number and it can appear. I'm going to see. Let me ask if that's possible. From Guatemala, Chris Ingram, welcome. Grateful to be here now. I'm grateful you are here now. I'm sending this message because I'm going to forget this immediately, and I like this idea. If it's not a crazy ton of work. Let's see. I'm going to ask my team about this. Folks, as you're coming in here, Columbine, Lilac, and Iris. Okay, maybe it might be a lot of work for a small payoff, but I think that would be cool if people text images. You know what I think I'm thinking about starting is a mindful, a kind of Instagram sort of thing, and have people commit to doing 1 month. And that month is every day 3 images sent into Discord, so just to catalog what happened in your day, 3 things that happened. And so that is, I was thinking of that. I thought that might be a nice thing as a way to have a good time and see what's up with people's lives. Something that is not Instagram. Okay. Julia Temple, welcome here from Vienna, Austria. Grateful for second COVID shot. Man, I got mine really early. I was very lucky. Got mine very early. And it's something I haven't thought about in a little while. But when I think about it, it's so crazy how impactful it is, and how like I'm like looking around the world and I'm just like, I can't believe this is happening. I can't believe we're actually possibly in a place where this whole crazy thing could potentially end. In the United States, I know that that's not the center of the world, but it's the center of my world. They said in most situations, no masks if you're double vaccinated 2 weeks after. And this is how serious it is. I don't know if you know, but the White House takes like COVID and masks and all this stuff like hyper seriously. You know, like even though it wasn't needed when Joe Biden was outdoors, he would have a mask on. Like very intense, like, okay, you know, I guess you're taking it really serious. I mean, you're the president, like probably a good idea. The new rule, which was like as of yesterday or the day before, you don't need a mask if you're double vaccinated in the White House. It's crazy. I mean, to me, that feels like a really big watermark where it's like the people who are the most like paranoid and cautious are like, yeah, no, it's time. It's crazy. Europe is way behind the US. Yeah, but guess what? I just heard today. This is news. The European Union just accepted visitors from who are double vaccinated. So guess what that means, folks? I'm coming. European vacation coming in September. I'm 100%. I'm like, and tickets still right now from the US, from New York to Paris are $500. That's like cheaper than to fly to San Francisco. So I'm 100% going to buy myself some flights to Paris. I've never been to Paris. Always wanted to go. And I've heard it's going to be pretty thin on the ground, so we'll find out. So, excellent. Okay, folks. So, come visit you. You're in Vienna. Maybe, you know, that's part of the thing I think about is like, should I just go for a month and like just fly around and stay there and work and like hang out? And, yeah, well, Gene, listen, right now, I mean, they're not going to be this much for very long. I mean, usually, you know, $1,000 to $2,000. Business class tickets are $800. It's like crazy. Have schlag with Julia. Schlag is the what is that? It's a weird drink. I don't know exactly what it is, but I just heard of another one, but it's actually from Chicago that I think is Swedish, but it's like this horrible, it's like tastes like a dead animal. And I'm like, why is this even a thing? I think it's just the thing to torture people. Anyway, I forget what that's called. Julia Temple whipped cream. Whipped cream, is that like a Vienna thing, whipped cream? Did Vienna come up with whipped cream? If they did, boy, let me tell you, that's quite a accomplishment. Okay, morning, Nate. Good morning, good to see you, Nate. You know the rules. Where are you at? What are you grateful for? Schlag is whipped cream. Oh, well, thanks. That is great. I'll have a schlag pie. Anyone else who's joining us? Where are you at? What are you grateful for? I'm very excited for today's meditation. Today's meditation, what we're going to be talking about is this idea. I did a training. Oh, P.S. Sorry, guys. I'm telling you now, no stream tomorrow. No, I'm sorry, no stream tomorrow. No stream on Friday because I'm doing the IFS training again, another leg. And beep, bop, is IFS training. What's going on in my mind? IFS training. I did IFS and psychedelics training last weekend, and the teacher, the guide, said something that I thought was very interesting. Is that they said basically, you know, for human beings, suffering it can feel totally endless, and especially when you're really in that space of like really feeling the intensity, it can feel like there's nothing but pain. You know, as a human, if you really go into your like the deepest experience of being a human, it can feel like there's just endless pain, especially if you have trauma or there's a historic trauma, like a familial trauma, this kind of thing. So what we're going to be talking about is this idea that what he said, which I thought was interesting. I'm rephrasing it but a little bit more mathematically sounding. Sure, suffering is infinite. Suffering equals infinity. However, it's very important to know that compassion equals infinity plus one, always. And what the mind can do is just look at the part that's like, oh, but this is like it feels like an endless amount of suffering. And the route to get through that without the significant suffering is the route that we're going to go with today, which is that compassion is bigger than suffering. So that is what we're going to be meditating around. So, and when I say suffering, sometimes people get like, well, I don't suffer. I just, that's not my experience. The term suffering, especially in Buddhism, is used very broadly. So, let's see here. The term suffering is used very broadly in Buddhism, and what is so it means like it's very a wide spectrum. So it's everything from like what you think like agony, like but even less agony, like annoyance. That's still considered like a level of suffering. But a large portion of suffering that is pointed to, especially in early Buddhism, is this idea that the system, the body and mind, are geared to want this moment to be different in some way or another. So perhaps you already know exactly what I'm about to say. You've heard this 100 times and you're like, okay, just move on. I get the point. You've said it already. Sometimes as a joke, I'll like start repeating myself at this point when I'm giving this example, and people just, the frustration will increase, as you can imagine. But any of that is considered in the realm of suffering, also in the realm of suffering, because it's actually, the term is that suffering, well, the concept is suffering is caused by clinging. So what do we mean then by clinging? Clinging is very broadly defined, but it's a pretty good concept. It's the mind, it's the mind organizing data. I know that sounds like a weird definition, but the mind making a sense of self, me, world. Now I have to fight and navigate and all these things. This is all in the realm of clinging. So clinging and suffering are pretty much considered equal to each other. And clinging is, if you can remember your childhood bedroom, that's a form of clinging. Now, early Buddhism is really like all clinging bad. Later Buddhism starts to say, well, excuse me. Later Buddhism starts to say, okay, you could transmute it, like you could alchemize it from something that's difficult to something that is, better and transformative. Late Buddhism, like 1,000 years ago, says it's all divine, it's all freedom, and we just have to see that it's freedom and see that it's transparent, that it's non-dual, that it doesn't hold any weight. Anyway, that's the larger concept, but that's neither here nor there. What we're going to do is we're going to meditate our asses off for 25 minutes. This is a place for beginners. This is not for neophytes or debutantes, dilettantes. This is where we learn how to have a good time in meditation. And this is where we fight against the misconception that meditation is meant for stress reduction. Meditation is meant for human transformation. And stress reduction is a nice beginning. You can count on that, some stress reduction for sure. Nate here says, I'm right here. I'm grateful for frequent realization of presence. Okay, great. Excellent. If anyone else is joining us, if you want to hit us with where you're at and what you're grateful for, we'll hear you. We usually try to do that to pump up self-created sense of fulfillment. This has been shown statistically to work. So folks, take any final sips of your beverage, especially if you have a foamy green beverage, as I do. Foamy and green are especially useful for meditation. So finding a nice comfortable position that you can maintain for the duration, we're going to encourage you to sit in stillness. A little kink going. There we go. So finding a nice comfortable position that you can maintain. We're going to be practicing in stillness, and what that means is that you're going to veto any movement in the body, and we are going to, if you feel overwhelmed at all or a little overwhelmed, go ahead and adjust the body a little. If it's not going away, you can make a bigger adjustment. You can even open the eyes or even stop the meditation, but you don't want to let overwhelm be there in the back and you're just sort of pressing it down. It's not good. So folks, find that nice, comfortable position that you can maintain for the duration. I'll clear my throat one more time. And when you're ready, we will begin. Beginning by taking a few comfortable deep breaths and just feeling the body rise and fall. Each time we begin a meditation, we begin with the momentum of all of the previous moments. This means all of the previous moments. So we don't have to think of what these are, but know that since the beginning of time itself, the beginning of the universe, there have been forces moving, pushing, forming, undulating, eventually coming to the form of a planet, coming to the form of human life, coming into the form of whatever we had for breakfast this morning, the thoughts and actions we've taken, the decisions we've made, including the one to be here in this moment. And so what we have access to is a kind of display screen, or the end of a hose that's pouring out all of the effects of all of these movements of the cosmos, movements of biology and society. And we don't need to worry about how we got here, just all of these effects spilling out in the form of this moment. How rich and complex that is. And as we feel the body simply breathing, and the simple act of attending to this simple sensation, breathing, physically relaxing, we have a front row seat to all of the potential of all of that material. If we simply let the mind wander, we lose this access. So this particular moment, as a readout of all of these cosmic and pedestrian forces, is incredibly important, at least if we want to be free. So physically relaxing the body, relaxing the major muscle groups, the head, including the muscles behind the eyes, back of the tongue, letting the jaw go slack, the neck and shoulders, the arms, and relaxing the hands. If the hands are already still and relaxed, knowing that we can relax more than we can physically feel. Relaxing the torso, the lower belly, and the hips. Relaxing the legs, and relaxing the feet. And then beginning to relax the entire body as one collective. All of the letting go or neutral sensations in one pool. And beginning to take in all of our sensory experience again as one pool, rather than lots of tiny bits. The mind can't hold this many pieces, but it can hold all of them as one soft collective. It may not be noticeable or apparent at first, but this open awareness is deeply neutral. It doesn't need anything that it touches, anything that it is aware of, to change. If it notices or comes in contact with discomfort, it doesn't need the discomfort to change. Some part of us might want it to change, but the awareness doesn't need that. This is one way to tell if what we're experiencing in that particular moment is awareness. So whatever arises, noticing, is there any need associated with it? If there was a magic wand that could touch that experience, is there some part of us that would use that wand to change it in any way? And that's not a problem, it's not bad. It's simply an indication that that's not quite awareness. But there's a trick. The part of us that knows the part the awareness that knows something would change if it could. This is awareness. In other words, awareness accepts that there's parts of us that suffer and cling. It doesn't need them to be different. It understands. And so we're going to come up with a phrase for our awareness. In other words, a phrase that our awareness can say to any experience. It might be as simple as, hello, hello. Or perhaps it's, I see you, I see you, I see you. Or perhaps it's, welcome, welcome. Finding a phrase that fits for us, not being overly fussy. The part of us that's overly fussy is just a part. So to that part we can say, I see you. Thank you. Thank you. Recognizing that the accepting nature of our awareness is a kind of deep, transformative compassion, a willingness to know any and all experience without a need for it to be different. This is the true understanding of a kind of universal compassion. This is the innate kindness that is the nature of awareness. So picking a phrase that can run slowly but on loop. Welcome. Welcome. Letting the experience of that reverberate throughout the system, throughout all experiencing. Welcome. Welcome. And whatever arises, pleasant, unpleasant, neutral, simply welcoming it. And if we find there's something that we can't welcome, then giving that experience our understanding, welcoming it or saying, I understand. You can't welcome this. I understand. Of course. Welcome. 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 And if there's a part of us that is assessing this, it's going well, it's going terribly. If there's a part of us that is concerned about doing it right, maximizing the benefit, recognize this is a part. This is not the whole. It wants something subtle, wants this to go well. It's not bad, it's also part of nature. So we simply welcome everything within nature. In other words, everything. Welcome. Welcome. And at times, we can feel like we're stuck in a part. There's no space, we're just some part that doesn't like or wants. But simply knowing that this is occurring is actually creating a sliver of distance, a sliver of space for awareness to come in. If something feels very solid and separate from the whole, know that awareness also permeates. It doesn't just surround. It's like an atmosphere that can go through any part that feels isolated or divided, any self, any preferring. Welcome or thank you. Welcome. Welcome. even if there's a sense of space and time, this is also the mind shaping the world. And this might seem esoteric or remote, but even to that, welcome. Welcome. If we drift away, or get foggy and lose track, welcome. Welcome. Tuning into this flavor of kind, spacious awareness. And for a moment, tuning into the whole field. And everywhere awareness can be, it is. And recognizing for a moment that this kind, spacious awareness, perhaps this is a kind of home. Perhaps this is a kind of refuge, a place we could return to over and over, anytime we want. So feeling a sense of rest, a space where we don't need to be anyone or do anything. We don't even need to meditate well. And if these needs arise, they are welcome. Welcome. So cultivating this sense of this spacious awareness as home. What if this is the home that we've been waiting for? All of that doing, efforting, all the work we've been investing in for so long, what if it was trying without knowing to lead us here? Just what if? And simply feeling that deep return, that sense of arrival, And staying with the practice, staying in stillness, staying with that sense of arrival, that sense of home. Adding a tiny bit of light to the eyes, and eventually, slowly, in our own time, finding a single point that we can rest the eyes on as they fully open. Again, staying with the practice, staying in stillness. Letting the spaciousness and quiet of seeing expand the spaciousness of our awareness. And in this way, allowing this particular moment to be the great teacher that shows us how we might bring this practice into every aspect of our life. So making any adjustments you need to allow the body to be comfortable. I was in a nice stretch position for that whole practice, so I do a little counter stretch. Oh yeah, nice. I've been doing a lot more stretching lately. I'm very happy about that. I'm trying to do the yogs every day. We'll see about that. Okay, folks, 2 ways. The next part is very fun, very important. We're using 2 types of digital technology. One, these digits. The other is Discord. So that first link there is to our Discord. Beep up, beep up, up, up. And I'm jumping on right now. You know, every time it takes me like 10 minutes to find where our voice channel. There's music. Oh, there it is. Okay, great. Excellente. In the waiting room. Chris, great. I'm going to pop you in now. Adjust your audio thusly. Hello, Chris. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. How's it going?
Going well. Let me just check your audio. Great. Welcome.
Give me a second.
Sure. Uh-oh. We lost Chris. Back in the waiting room. Okay. I'm going to bring you back in. You said wait a second, but I don't know what that means. Okay, we'll go to Julia Temple here. My report is almost cookie cutter, relaxing, peaceful. Small amount of kriyas, meaning involuntary sort of movements, these kind of things. What is new is some vivid flow experience in feel in than usual, so more emotional flow. Okay, that's very cool, very interesting. And Julia, here's what I want to know. You popped into the waiting room. Okay, so Chris, give me 1 second, and I'll pop you back. I just want to answer to Julia. What I'd be curious, Julia, is how was the sense of home in the in connecting with the kind awareness today? Settling into that as a kind of place that you could reside or abide. That is one of the trainings. That's one of the central trainings. Okay, so let's pop Chris back in here. If anyone else wants to jump onto Discord, we can chit-chat like kitty cats. Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Great.
We're good.
Nice. So what was that
Yeah.
like?
So I had again, I'm improving my sensory clarity to a point I can see these like intentions arise, like the intention to check for the time, the intention to move,
Great.
uh, and trying to stay in awareness and not like getting sucked into the parts. But
Great.
yeah, so
Excellent.
the practice in daily life, because you need to like choose a part, right, to identify with, like to function, right. So
Well, you don't,
uh,
again, that'll typically happen on its own. Like you don't usually need to like, okay, which part do I want to, and if, in that case, the part that is just on its own naturally taking over is the part that would analyze something like that. So it's this sort of over part that's like, oh, I'm the manager. I'm the one that's going to manage all this stuff. So you don't actually need to do that if you don't want. The system will just default to one part or another. Part of what we're doing is just doing our daily lives, letting it happen, and noticing which part is sort of jumping in and say, welcome. Okay, cool, great. Parts are really good at doing jobs. So we let them do their job, groovy, and then we, carry along like that. Does that make sense?
yeah, the thing is that I have parts that are doing a job, but not the job I want. Like for example,
Right.
the part that was distracting. So
Right.
I
Okay,
need to like,
that's a little different.
okay. So do I need to relax that part and let the other one arise, or do I like intentionally
Yeah,
seek the other part?
so what I was referring to is just sort of default stuff. Like it's like I get up in the morning and I brush my teeth and I'm kind of like going around doing things. I don't need to be like, well, who's doing this? It can just let whatever part is doing whatever needs to be done. However, if I'm finding that I'm trying to do X and a kind of contradictory part is coming in and saying, you know, this morning was a good example. I was pretty tired and I was like, I'm going to get up and do yoga. And there was just this full on battle between the part that was like, come on, you'll be happy if you do the yoga. And this part that's like, I am tired. I do not care. So it was a bit of a negotiation. And so in that case, you can negotiate and talk to that part and be like, hey, I hear you. It sounds like you're concerned. And, you can't always do this to such an extent. Sometimes you have to say like, listen, I'm really sorry. I'm going to need you to step aside. We really have to do this. But if that doesn't work, if you can't just be like, hey, do you mind? I got to move on. Now we have an issue where we actually need to work with a part. So either in meditation or, in writing or some form that will actually address the part, we then ask the questions, which are like, hey, it sounds like you're, something's coming up for you, or you don't want me to do X, Y, and Z. Let's take a look. Where is that showing up in the body? Like, where are you is an important one. What's your role? It sounds like the role is to distract and find interesting things, or whatever that is. What would happen if you let go of this role? So it's like, in a way, it's getting to what it would be afraid of. It's like, well, what would happen if you just stopped doing it? It's going to say, I can't stop doing that if we aren't distracted there. I'm going to miss all the fun things, and and you start to sort of indicate something vulnerable behind it that it's managing and protecting, because that's all these parts have roles that they are. It's a behavior to work against, feeling this thing in the background that's difficult or whatever it is. So you start to get towards that. And then we basically just hold that experience. Oh, it sounds like, maybe the distracted part is afraid that if it doesn't get the pleasure now, then it won't ever get it. And it'll, and so we just hang out with that. It sounds like you're scared. It sounds like you want to, feel pleasure or want to relax or something like that. And we're trying to meet that part's needs. But what's hard for parts to understand is the thing that they need more than anything else is companionship and friendship from the whole system, from the kind awareness. It thinks what it needs is a donut. It thinks what it needs is to, whatever thing a part needs. But what it really needs is care and to be held and to be met and attuned with versus pushed away. So it's often the pushing away that is actually causing the turbulence. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. The last question: how does that? Do you think it can be like working in conjunction with like affirmations and stuff,
Oh,
or
100%.
positive thinking?
Yes,
Yeah.
100%. But you just have to remember, often with like affirmations, people think that you say the thing that is the opposite to the part, and that's going to work well. So maybe there's a part that's like, I just need a break. I just need a break. And so the affirmation is like, you can do it. Go out there, be bold. Like the Shia LaBeouf meme where he's like, do it. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen that video.
Yeah.
It's like really
Yeah,
silly.
I've seen it.
But so what he's saying is he's talking to the part that can do it and saying that part should be in charge, which is great if that's the case. And he has a very strong manager part that can just go out there and do it. Good for him. A lot of people either have that part, but it's contradicting with another part. So you want to use the affirmation that works for that particular part. Now, not always. You can say, all right, you can do it, you can do it. You can use those affirmations and see what arises. And the other voice might come up and be like, but I'm scared. If I do it, what if I'm alone? So then you want to make sure you have an adjusting, an affirmation that you can say, okay, do it. I'll be there with you. Do it. I'm going to be there with you. Do it. And you're saying the words that part feels, cares for it. I know this sounds very like touchy-feely, this kind of thing. It's understood, but that ultimately this is the stuff that tends to work. Trust me, I would love a world where like affirmations were like it's not allowed, and all we did is just like try hard and be cool, but it just tends to work. So yeah, affirmations are great, and you need to adjust them to the needs of the part, and the parts will be very communicative. You've probably done a loving kindness practice, and the part has said, you're like, oh, I love you, or whatever the phrase is, and the part's like, this is stupid. What a stupid meditation. Why are we doing this? That's good information. You want to hear that part. You want to know that it's there. You want to notice where it is in the body. You want to notice when this happens, this drive, which is a real motivation. I want to feel love or compassion or whatever we're going for. This part doesn't feel held. So it is going to fight us feeling love and compassion until it's heard. So we have to hear it. So maybe the affirmation just switches completely. And the affirmation, it could be just slight difference. Instead of like, I love you, maybe it's like, I hear you. I hear you. I understand. I understand. And we're just basically creating a friendship. And you can't create a friendship with any part of yourself or somebody else by being like, screw you, the thing you need, like, I don't care. You have to attune and be like, hey, what's up? Like, what do you need? Like, what would be helpful? So that is what I would suggest.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Awesome. Okay.
I'll let you get to the others.
Thanks, buddy. Okay, so I'm going to pop you in the waiting room. If anyone else wants to jump on Discord, we can, again, chit-chat like kitty cats. Right now we have some text reports. Exalted Bro says the following.
When you meet a new person and you start talking about hobbies and stuff, do you say you meditate? And how do you respond when they say, oh, that's cool, it's like for blood pressure and stuff, right?
This comes up like every single day. I say I'm a meditation teacher, and they're like, oh, wow, that's cool. It's like, yeah, that's what I do. And I basically, like, it just depends on the level of connection. And if it's just someone on the street and they're like, oh, wow, that's cool. I need to, like, typically I'll say, I'm a meditation teacher. Sometimes I'll say I'm a full-time meditation teacher just to emphasize, like, this is not like, it's just something that is in the background. I'm a full-time meditation teacher. And they'll usually say, oh, I need that. I am so stressed. So I don't fight that. I just say, oh yeah, that's true. That's great. And then if they ask a little bit more, typically I have short things that I say. And I'll say, like, stress reduction is a great side effect, or like, minor effect of what meditation is. But just remember, meditation was designed by its nature to transform the way we perceive and experience the world. That's its function. Now, along that, path of transformation, reducing stress is definitely helpful. But we're not like trying to get rid of stress, because maybe that's another part of nature. Whatever. Now I'm getting into just teaching in general, but I'll just say, like, there's much more to this than stress reduction, basically. But yeah, I think it's nice to say I meditate. I think it's very confusing to people who don't understand what that is. So sometimes I'll add a modifier, like I'll say, yeah, I do. I'm the founder of the Deep Mindfulness Collective. What's deep mindfulness? Well, and then I'll explain, like, it's a form of mindfulness that's built to transform the way we live in the world, which they don't understand is a lot of mindfulness. So that's that. Let me double check here on, okay. I don't see anybody in Discord, so we're going to jump to Jean.
It's getting easier for me to stop my mind from wandering. I catch it as it's happening, remind myself I want to have a disciplined mind, and mostly stay with it.
Nice.
Today I was compelled to move a lot into some deep stretches.
Good.
It didn't feel so much like a distraction as I felt prompted to let go of old energy that was being squelched out of my fascia.
Mm-hmm.
My word for the kind awareness was welcome, as if I was saying it to a person from out of town I have been wanting to meet.
That's great. Yeah, and you notice today, this goes back to Chris Ingram's question. I said, pick any phrase. And there's probably some folks who picked a phrase and it was like, it's the wrong phrase, and the mind's worried about, like, should it be this phrase or that phrase? Again, that's just a part. It's just another example of the mind wanting to exert itself versus experiencing what's happening. So yeah, any other questions, reports, interest, opportunities, these kind of things? Okay. Beep up, beep up, up. Oh, Jean. Jean just said that. Okay. Anyone else want to jump in Discord or say anything before we drift away into the night? I think I might do something. Okay, let me see. I might just do something here for a little bit and see if this is interesting, because I've thought about doing this on stream for a while and then been like, no one's going to be interested in that. And then I'm like, well, maybe they would. Okay. Okay. That means this is here. This is here. Excellent. Okay. Okay. Exalted is saying the following. Where is this one? Exalted says,
What if it's not a person on the streets, but a friend or a family member? Do you just stick with the yeah, sure, stress reduction is useful?
I mean, I just talk about my experience. Oh, are you in the waiting room here, Nate? Nope. Okay. Hey, Nate. Nice to see you. I just stick with my experience. Yeah, it's been really transformational. I've found that, I thought it was about, reducing my stress exactly that same way. And then actually it started to bleed into my life in all these like really rich ways that I didn't expect. And yeah, it's been cool. But it's always, whenever you bring up a thing, I find this is something I learned later in life because I grew up alone on a farm and, didn't have a lot of great socialization, is you say the sentence and then you see if it lands, and someone will be like, oh, really? Wait, it transformed your life. That's big. Tell me more, right? That's a big response. It's usually you're not going to get that. Typically, I'll see your question in a second then, Nate. Thank you. Typically, it's more like, oh, really? Right? And so you just get a little hint, oh, okay, I can go more. But sometimes people will be like, oh, transformation. I just saw the Transformers movie. Let me tell you. And you're like, okay, we're going a different direction. So that you just base it on what other folks are leaning towards. Nate's question. All I see here is I'm right here grateful for frequent presence. Nate's question. Nate, I'm not seeing it here. Will you cut and paste that thing? Or if there is more questions, or did I miss your question? I'm not seeing it in the chat. So paste that sucker. Unless it's like above the... No, I don't see any question from you. In my chat, at least. Yeah, so repaste that sucker. I want to try something here. As we're doing this. I want to re-enter the classic, this sucker. My favorite. Oh, yeah. So what this is our drawing tablet. I haven't used this in a while. I went through this whole search to find this thing because I was like, I want to use this so bad during the stream. Okay, where is this? Where's the pen? Is it not working? Oh, here we go. Oh yeah, okay. Okay. Let's pick a color that you can see. Okay, excellent, excellent. Okay, so folks, let's look for Nate's question so we don't miss that along the way. Okay, so Nate, tell me what your question is, and then we'll get to that. So what I wanted to do was, I'm basically rebuilding my entire, what's it called? My entire library of meditation. I'm rebuilding all this stuff in terms of classes. Julia had another question too. Oh, Julia, geez Louise, I see questions here that there aren't showing up in the chat over here. Wait a minute. Oh, here we go. I do see it. This follow-up. Oh, here we go. Okay. Oh, great. Those are great questions. Thank you, Julia. I missed this. Thanks for letting me know, Nate.
This is a follow-up to when I asked about skillful uses of resistance
Great.
And received a very broad answer.
Okay.
Let's narrow it down. What are situations in which actively, willfully pushing against sensations is a skillful action?
Great. It depends on your definition of pushing.
Like, for instance, when thoughts of self-harm arise as I'm crossing the street, I might push against them to assure a safe crossing. or when overwhelm appears. Would you consider these examples skillful?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, basically, skillful has to be defined pretty broadly because ultimately it has to do with our values. What do we value? What's important to us? So, which is a moving target. So if we have a sense of our values and then we are trying to move towards those, and we say, you know, like, okay, here's, like, I have competing values in this particular moment, right? I want to answer your question. I want you to feel like, oh, I get it, etc. And I also want to, like, draw out this thing that I was talking about, you know, a second ago, with my cool new, you know, whatever thing. So right now there are competing values, and I have to decide which value has a higher, you know, has a hierarchy. Now that's hopefully some work I've done before, and it is in this case. I know that I want you to feel satisfied before I get into something a little more creative. And so what that means is that's the hierarchy of decision. I'm actively deciding that I'm going to move in this direction. So there is some form of shaping or movement in that way. So the reason it requires a somewhat broad question answer is because it's a very big concept. Is when do you allow and when do you change reality? When do you try to just let whatever's happening happen? When do you accept whatever's happening? So traditionally these are called the two truths, or the two realities, or, you know, ultimate reality, the transcendent side, and then the mundane on the other side. Yesterday I was explaining to someone how in artwork there tends to be these two directions. One is like representational, functional reality. Like a Doritos bag is art, right? I mean, why not? And then the other direction is like transcendent. It has no function or purpose. It's just meant to make us exit or transform or change in some way. So these are also the two directions in meditation. But what you find over time is that as you really explore these two worlds, as you start to realize that the rules of the, you know, mundane or ordinary world and the transcendent world are different. If you try to apply the rules from one to the other, you get in a lot of trouble. The classic example, or the example that I like, is if you say to someone who comes to you and says, hey, it seems like there's a huge amount of inequity in our world, and as a person of color, for instance, I feel like it's deeply unfair, and it feels like there's this world, like this cloud of violence that I have to deal with that, you know, people not of color don't have to deal with. And I say, hey man, it's all transcendent. Like, your identity doesn't even exist. So, I switched hands. So, you know, it's all transcendent. Your identity doesn't exist. So just take that non-existence and just like go be, man. Like, that is a form of violence in terms of these rules, right? And that's what can happen sometimes is, you know, a certain teacher will say like, oh, you have no identity, just let that go. So in this realm, in the mundane or the ordinary realm, like we have money and we have, you know, we have to pay rent and we have all these social relations that yes, they're an illusion, but within their own context, they're very real. You can't go into a grocery store and say, hey, here's a, you know, we're all stardust, man. I think I said some of this the other day, but over time, this is the doing side and this is the non-doing side. This is the, you know, help somebody up the stairs with their baby carriage. This is the, you know, stare into the empty maw of existing. Over time, you start to realize that they're fully merged. They're actually the same thing. So taking an action like not letting yourself die as you're crossing the street is a transcendent action. It is, in its nature, aligning your values with the sort of movement and flow of experiencing. Yes, it is true that if you died on one level, it wouldn't matter at all. On another level, it would. So what it is an acknowledgement that all of these different things are nature. So the question of when is it okay, when is it okay to, when is it okay to, I'm suddenly, there we go, satisfied. When is it okay to intervene in the world in any way? It's basically all the time. You can always intervene, but you do want the skill and the ability to not intervene if you don't want to, or if you want to be able to let that go. So hopefully that very broad answer is not, you know, too broad. I think you said something else here. Let's see. You also said, I mean,
in the examples I gave, thoughts of self-harm, overwhelm, I'm assuming the sensation will come back later if pushed away, and may well come back stronger.
Okay. Yeah, that's now we're talking about the nature of that
To
experience.
narrow it down further, this is the kind of sensations I'm thinking about. Chat pause due to scroll.
Chat pause due to scroll. This is the kind of sensation I'm thinking about. So what I would, okay, so we don't want to repress, though. That's the transcendent rule. It's like if you repress things, they're going to express themselves in ways that we can't control. So, but it's not true that every thought then has to be expressed. Its thoughts will happen, and I mean, I think it is a normal, ordinary thought to be on the edge of the subway platform and the train's coming, and you're like, I could throw myself in the train, and people get scared and they're like, oh my God, there's something wrong with me. I thought about ending this life. It's actually a normal thought. It's living is very weird, and the idea that we could end our lives is like so insane, and you could just do it. Like there's no thing that would really stop you. So that's like a normal experience, but saying I'm going to just ignore that for now is not harmful. It's just recognizing sometimes the mind, blah blah blah, it's just a hamster on a wheel. What we want to look out for is unconsciousness. So if the thing comes up, it's conscious, you see it, there it is, got it, okay, we're going to move on. If it's constantly bubbling and we're trying to push it into unconsciousness, that's now we're getting into a little bit of troubling territory where it will begin to express itself. It will begin to come out in ways that are not, not intended, not wanted. But that's a great question. As I haven't had a lot of time to think about that. Like, what is the if we're just accepting things, I think I guess that's my answer. There's a difference between accepting, acknowledging, allowing, understanding this is nature, of course it's going to happen, and stopping something. They both might have the same effect, whereas it doesn't affect you in that moment, right? You just accept, oh, the mind had a wacky thought, fine. That's nature, versus like, don't think it, like there's something wrong with you, and like turning it into something vile and unnatural, right? That's basically what it is one version we recognize this is nature, the other version we're like, this is unnatural, bad, get out of here, and we repress it. So there's a difference between acceptance and repression. So that would be my broad, hopefully specific enough answer, hopefully. Okay, so I'm happy to take other questions. I don't know if this will be interesting for anyone else or boring, but I have to redo my entire meditation system. So what I need to do is figure out what meditations, basically guiding people from every realm, from beginner to intermediate to like awakening, what are the skills in a broken down the grid that I would be interested in teaching people. So that is one of the things I'm very interested in looking at. So one of the areas is just classic see, hear, feel. Oh my God, this thing doesn't write letters very well. See, hear, feel. That's one. The other one is IFS. Right? What would my path be? That's not an S. What would my path be if it were just, IFS? The other one is progressive insight, or as I call it, the progressive Shinsight, because it's very Shinzen oriented. What would the meditations be? Part of the reason is, and anyone who's taken my progressive insight, or rather progressive Shinsight class will know that beep, pop, up, is that there's, I was like, I want to make sure everyone knows what the meditation they're doing every day. So for 6 months, this is what I did last time, you have a meditation every day, a different guided meditation every day. I want to change that. I'd like it to be fewer guided meditations. There's like, it's a poverty of riches or something like that. Progressive Insight, IFS, also jhana. Jhana meditation. What are the other big fields of meditation? So in terms of, really there's, and these are big skills that I'm teaching now, which I think are relevant here. And these might even be underlying a lot of these, which is this, not this, and whole. I should do this darker so it can show its supremacy. Oh my God, too dark. Whole / part. Okay, so whole part meditation, basically like each one of these as a field of skill. What are the steps that you would move through to do these? And some of these we're going to link together. In some cases, like if I'm teaching IFS, I want people to learn, whole and part and these two together first. If I'm, doing progressive Shinsai, it might be good if people can do jhana first, maybe. See, hear, feel is probably going to be part of, well, not IFS necessarily, but part of progressive Shinsai for sure. Progressive Shinsai breaks down into all of these different meditation, tons of different skills that fit within this. So then it's a question of like, how do those, so this is the thing that I need to do. And is this interesting? Was this the kind of thing you'd want to sit here and have me and maybe some other people sit here and talk about and say, okay, what is the structure? What is this thing built out of? For me, it's helpful to have it live because there's a degree to which I'm just so motivated to, when it's live, to like go and like you want to complete the thing, you want to make it feel like a package. But if it's not of interest and it's just like a boring academic thing, but it would lay out and help me figure out what are the exact skills that I want people to learn. I'm trying to think if there's any other part here. Maybe just like straight compassion. 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 And what else? What other fields of meditation maybe you guys even know that I teach, that I'm trying to think of what else would be included here. Let's see, this is a separate thing, compassion. Any other field, like basically this is every tool for, a big one here, and I know this is a separate thing, but is values. I really use values a lot. Values and like how to unpack that and how to make that a sort of package that people could like look at and be like, okay, I know how to do your values thing. These all feel, I have systems for every one of these. And see, hear, feel is actually, it's more than just see, hear, feel. It's really sensory clarity in general. So, anyway, but I would like to go through and make a system for every one of these so that it could be more systematic and actually be a little modular. And someone could actually come to this stream or come to me generally. Wait, it's saying, okay, Julia Temple here. Okay. Oh, good. Hopefully, okay, you say thank you, Julia. So hopefully that slightly answered your question. Julia says the following.
I follow Shinzen and Shinzen-related content because the structure helps me tailor it to my situation. So I think systems and structures have an important place.
Great. And I agree. And right now, I think for a long time I've been in sort of a creative mode where I'm like creating parts and pieces and how they interact and stuff, or how they exist. And now I'm starting to get interested in how they interrelate and how they could be, modularized. In a way, it's like Shinzen's system is a system. And for me, I'm trying to figure out how can I make what I'm doing into its own system. Then what was the other piece? But the question partially is, would people kill me if we did this as like a live part of the live stream? I guess what we could do is have a regular live stream and then bring people on at like 12:15. I have you blocked. Blocked where? Where do I have you blocked, buddy? On Discord? Oh, there you go. Sorry, you're in the waiting room. I didn't know you were in the waiting room. Here we go, Nate. Hey, Nate, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hey, sorry about that. I didn't know you were in the waiting room. Just so you know, we're working on a doorbell system where when somebody gets in the waiting room, I hear a sound. And right now, I don't know. So I always have to just keep checking. So sorry about the delay.
No problem.
Excellent. So how can I be helpful?
One thing based on the last few things you were talking about, I would just say Vipassana versus Shamatha. Mm-hmm. And what the differences are might be something to spend a minute to focus on. Mm-hmm. And I think you mentioned the love and kindness kind of thing that is huge. And the jhanas, that all seems to make sense. I think a lot. I kind of started with some of the practices that were done by the Shambhala community, which isn't exactly that big of a community anymore for various reasons, but you don't throw the bathwater out with the baby, or vice versa, right? Sometimes. But I digress. That was just coming up with some other ideas. I wanted to ask my original question, since for some reason, even though I had posted it a few times, it never went through.
Oh, that's weird. But I saw you post Wait, let me just see here. I think,
Yeah.
yeah, no, it says you have me blocked, so that came through, so I'm not sure what happened.
It must be they're too long. I'm not sure. They're not that long. At any rate, so when I'm really focused on pulling my sensations and continuing to do that, a lot of times I will have some overwhelm that I believe is emotional, but it manifests physically in my throat and chest, almost to the degree that I can't breathe.
Yep.
Or I'm not breathing as heavily. But here's the thing: I don't want to stop it. When I welcome it, I want to like talk with that emotion. But instead, I physically relax my chest and relax my neck, and then the emotion goes away with the physical. And
Relaxation.
I'd almost prefer to have the emotion stay, and maybe even the physical stay, just to spend more time with it instead of basically letting it go. It's a lot like some of the same threads Julie was asking about, like I'd like to sit with those scary, for lack of a better word, emotions for longer. And is that a safe thing, or is that a thing that would benefit me in the long run? Like, I'm a runner, so sometimes we talk about useless miles that aren't doing you any good for your next race. Am I kind of barking up the wrong tree by wanting to do that?
No.
And I'll shut up now.
I would say the opposite is that those are potentially the most useful miles. Is those basically? It sounds like you're describing somatically held emotion.
I would agree.
Yeah, which is usually closely associated with either trauma, or more often probably developmental trauma. Often, you may be able to trace back like full-on like behavioral constellations that are actually there to block detecting that emotion. So, a couple things. One is, yes, we want to work through it. Two, one, yes. Two, if we go too quickly, then all the same behaviors and all the same like pain and suffering can come if we just like grind into it or this kind of thing. The other thing is that this is actually where the question or where the answer came from this teacher, where this guide said, compassion is greater than suffering. Because I brought up to him that when I do the psychedelic journeys, it feels like that same version of that for me, which is this very deep old sadness that feels like infinitely big, comes to the foreground, and there's nothing but that. The entire journey is just like 5 hours of like super intense cathartic weeping. And he reminded me, which I thought was interesting, is that IFS in particular is not a cathartic modality. In other words, it doesn't say that catharsis itself is going to heal the wound. It's the witnessing of the catharsis that heals the wound. So what that part ultimately needs is to be witnessed. Now, it might be witnessed in terms of its pain, but it might also be witnessed in terms of its letting go of the pain. So a couple things. One is you want to start noticing when you dip into having contact with that material, what does the system do? And what it could do is any number of it avoids meditation, it gets overwhelmed, or any of these different tactics, and these different parts that are arising to manage that experience. Start noting those. Start making, okay, here's a list of these different parts that are arising, that are coming in, that are difficult. If you can, and this is sort of in a way the easiest, but also for some folks the hardest, is like get an IFS therapist and start talking about this exact experience and saying, let them know that this is what we would call in IFS, this is an exile. This is a part that just can't be felt, or it's maybe a burden, an exile's burden. It's the pain that some part of us feels that it just feels like it cannot be felt. The other thing that I would mention is, for a long time, I would have this emotion, and I would be like, come on, I want to get into it, which is you described, like, I want to see you, come on, like, show yourself to me. And that sort of forward focus, like almost attention, can actually compress the emotion and make it like collapse down and disappear. And it can actually make it worse. So actually what we sort of want to have is more of an open, gentle, spacious, presencing without a need for it to change or be different. Asking that part the whole time, like, is this okay? Are you okay? The pain, or the part that's holding the pain, are you okay with this? The other thing that I found is actually there's a part of me that's like, I want to get through this. And in a way, it was sort of pushing that emotion to be felt. And it was actually pushing that emotion to be felt not by it. It didn't want to feel the emotion. It wanted to get through the emotion. So it would push the emotion to be felt, in my experience, by the most vulnerable part of me, which was like this part that I've talked to you before about, named Shelley. Just like pushing the emotion as though it was like trying to push this giant thing, this like tiny little aperture, and just like incredibly painful. And at some point I realized, why am I trying to get the most vulnerable part of me to feel the most like difficult emotion I've ever had? Like, what a weird, why would I do that? And why is the system sort of trying to push in that direction? So partially what I had to do over time was see the part that wanted it to go away, which is kind of, a lot of the time many parts are trying to get it to go away. They're just like, cover it up, cover it up. And what they're doing by covering it up is sort of pushing it down to this part that felt like it was underneath it getting crushed and being like, oh God, like this is too much. So partially I had to like separate it out and sort of pull it out experientially. And this sounds a little woo-woo, but this is just what worked for me. So that it could be experienced not by the part that, you know, feels most vulnerable, not by the part that's trying to make it go away, but by the system, by the kind awareness. Because every part has its own window of tolerance, how much pain it can feel before it just is like, that's it, and it shuts down the whole system. But
Okay.
the kind awareness has no limit. It can feel infinite difficulty or pain, and it has no window of tolerance. It is completely open. So part of what we're trying to do is train the system to witness the experience from that perspective. And if there's a part that's like, come on, you can do it, and it's hitting its window of tolerance, that is a self-like part, or it's not the kind of awareness. It's a part that can pretend to be close to it. It's usually the part that wants to understand. So
Okay.
does that begin to give you a constellation of kind of how to approach this?
It does begin. It's still,
Yeah.
I think I'm missing a point, because in like the Shinsight classes, for
Yep.
example, one of the informed consent kind of discussion, you want to make sure you got your overwhelm 1, 2, and 10 is
Mhm.
the scale. You don't want to hit 10, but so it's almost like it's a safety valve
Mhm.
to let it go. But I think I've just got to sort out the differences there between
Yeah.
what's emotion, what's somatic or physical, and what is like maybe my tolerance is just getting higher, so it's showing me that there's things that I can kind of maybe stick with a little more, and
Yeah.
because I want to, but just automatically in my head I'm like, wait, my body should be relaxing now instead of being all tensed up. So I relax, and
And then
I
the clarity
totally
goes
lose
away.
the thread.
Yeah,
Like
just
like a squirming coil or
Yeah.
something like that.
Exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, so you are like, you're familiar, you can run like an antelope. So that's, I would go for that in a sense. It's like, to take whatever you're experiencing, that sensation, and see literally if you can bring it into running. So allow that sensation to be there, even its absence, because remember, it's so stable that you don't even have to see it sort of at the foreground. And often the desire to see it at the foreground is that same pointed attention. So let that space be in your awareness, even when you're running, and see if it's okay. Because, your running self is probably very well developed. And so it can sort of, to some degree, buoy that experience and allow that to be there. You can physically work it out. You can actually feel the vibration and it's sort of shaking and,
Yeah.
moving. Feel if it's okay for that part to be felt in that way. And you can have that conversation while you're moving in that way. See if you can open awareness so that it can hold all of your experience, including the running and including that sensation. And then just see what comes up. I would encourage you to bring that into the physical activity, because we usually manage that stuff physically. And then I would say the piece that you're probably missing is actually the doing of it, which is, of course, some guidance is helpful. If you can get someone to guide you through IFS sessions, that would be ideal. Whether that's a guide or a specific IFS therapist. And yeah, that would be my general prognosis.
Okay.
But
Another day.
remember, take care to not override the system, because one part can handle it and the other part is like freaking out, and you're like, come on, grind and do it. If that part feels like that's all that happens, it's going to then rebel in the system and be like, screw you, like I'm not feeling this, and we're going to repress this because you just push it in my face and it hurts.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great.
A question for another day is where IFS starts and your meditation teachings and practice ends, and vice versa. But we can discuss that another time.
They're becoming more and more overlap. But actually, let me find this right now. Crap. If it's not public yet because it's like such a good video that I've been like trying to edit it. But because of that, it means that let me see.
Well, we can watch it another time then. That's no big deal.
Yeah. Let me give you this link though, because this is an unpublic video, and I'm going to. Oh, I see. It's on airplane mode. I'm going to email this to myself right now. So if you hang around one more minute, I will send you a video link that is literally with diagrams. Here we go. About how these different parts overlap, and it's really about how non-duality and I wonder if I can just post it on the Twitch stream from my phone as though I'm a dismiss. Oh yeah, I'm live. Friends, accounts, my channel. View dashboard. Oh, here we go. I'm posting in the chat right now. So this is an unlive video. This is a secret link of the day. So that video actually has diagram explanation of what you're just asked. Okay, last question here. Exalted. Thank you, Nate. I'm going to pop you back in the waiting room. Good to see you. Okay, Exalted here says, where is this? Here we go. Does
effortless do-nothing practice have significant risk of developing subtle dullness? How can I prevent it if I like to practice as effortless as possible?
In a true non-doing practice, dullness is going to arise, and it's just part of nature. There's nothing you can do. There's no way to stop it. It's dull now. Sometimes it's not dull. That is, that's a way to go. And I encourage it if it really works. And dullness is there sometimes, and you just have to live with it. And that's what's up. Get to a retreat, get to like a long, Zen practice where you're just doing it all the time, and the system will work through that. You can also, as if the dullness part arises, take a minute to talk to the dull part and say, hey, listen, I see you're bringing in, there's dullness. I get it. Would you mind stepping aside because I'm doing this really fun thing but if the dullness comes in, it makes it really hard. Would you mind just stepping aside for now? And that part may or may not listen. If it doesn't listen, we do our deconstructive, process. If it does listen, great, you just keep going. So that's a more intervention-y tactic, but that might be fun. Okay. Excellent, folks. Great to see you all. We had a nice long stream today. We might very well come back and I might do a stream or a few streams just to figure out my actual system, how all the pieces fit together. A little blackboard over here. Oh, good. I'm so glad you're still here. I thought maybe you had to hit eject. Okay, folks. Lovely as always to see you here. Right now, if you can take in that compassionate awareness, that home that we connected with before, and because we connected with it just even a little bit, it should be slightly easier to access, even that sense of it being a refuge or a place that you can rest or abide. And letting that be the guide for how you might bring this practice into every aspect of your life. Folks, as always, practice well, take care of each other, have fun, and we'll see you all very, very soon.